Craigslist, a strange digital bazaar where you can find nearly anything. A couch, a job, a used car, even a date. It's faceless, fast, and oddly intimate. Just text. A name, maybe a meeting spot. But behind the flickering screen of this online marketplace, there have been moments, horrifying moments, where the promise of opportunity unraveled into bloodshed. This isn't just about shady transactions or awkward meetups. No, these are stories soaked in deception, manipulation, and cold-blooded murder. A babysitting gig that turned fatal. A job offer that led into the woods and never came back. The platform that connects strangers also opens the door to predators. Tonight, we venture into the shadows cast by the glow of your screen. These are 10 real cases, 10 cautionary tales from Craigslist that ended in horror, heartbreak, and sometimes death. I'm your host, and this is Crooked Veil. Case 1. The Farm Trap. Scott Davis and the Deadly Job Post. It seemed like the answer to everything. Scott Davis was down on his luck in 2011. Recently divorced, jobless, and looking for a fresh start. He found a listing that felt like a godsend. A live-in caretaker position on a sprawling farm in rural Ohio. The ad promised steady pay, room and board, and a peaceful life. He responded, and soon after, he was on his way to meet a man named Jack, the supposed landowner's brother, who would take him to the property. What Scott didn't know was that this was no farm. There were no crops, no livestock. What he was walking into was a killing ground. Jack led him down a wooded path, talking casually. Then, without warning, the man raised a gun and fired. Scott was hit, but not fatally. Wounded and bleeding, he scrambled through the woods, dodging bullets and tree limbs, until he finally escaped to a nearby house. Police were stunned. They began digging into the ad. 16-year-old Brogan Rafferty and his mentor, a self-proclaimed street preacher named Richard Beasley. Together, they posted job listings to lure in vulnerable men. Their true motive? Robbery and murder. Scott was lucky. 3 others weren't. The remains of the other victims, all men desperate for work, were found buried on the property. Beasley was sentenced to death. Rafferty, though underage, received life without parole. A job offer turned hunting expedition. Case 2. The babysitting job that never was. Catherine Ann Olson. In 2007, Catherine Ann Olson was just 24, a creative soul, a theater major. Deeply kind, she often took babysitting jobs to support herself, and Craigslist was where she found them. So when an ad went up in Savage, Minnesota, looking for a sitter for a young girl, Catherine responded without hesitation. She never returned home. Her car was found in a park. Inside the trunk was her body, shot and left like discarded trash, her purse still inside, her phone silenced. The killer? 19-year-old Michael John Anderson, a boy who thought it would be funny to post a fake babysitting ad and see who responded. He wasn't looking for help. He was looking for someone to kill. He later told police it was all a joke, until it wasn't. Catherine's death was one of the first Craigslist-related homicides to make national headlines. Her story sent shockwaves across the country, prompting questions about digital safety and the terrifying ease with which predators can mimic normalcy online. All it took was a name and a lie. Case 3. The Craigslist Killer. Philip Markoff. He was the golden boy. Tall, smart, handsome, a med student with a bright future. But Philip Markoff had a darkness that ran beneath the surface. hidden behind a charming smile. In 2009, Markoff used Craigslist to find his victims. He scoured the erotic services section, posing as a client. But instead of seeking pleasure, he sought control, domination, blood. His most brutal act, Julissa Brisman, a 26-year-old masseuse, was found shot in a Boston hotel room. Just days before, another woman had been bound and robbed under similar circumstances. The pattern was chilling. Security footage and emails led back to Markoff. Police were stunned. He didn't fit the profile. Until they looked closer. He had a secret stash, handcuffs, duct tape, a gun. Awaiting trial, Markoff killed himself in jail by slashing his arteries and shoving toilet paper down his throat. Even in death, he tried to control the narrative. The headlines called him the Craigslist Killer, but behind the name was a man who weaponized trust and turned fantasy into murder. Case 4. Ronnie J. Towns, the classic car trap. In 2015, Bud and June Runyon, a kind, elderly couple from Georgia, placed an ad on Craigslist seeking to buy a 1966 Ford Mustang, a car Bud loved from his days as a Vietnam vet. Their ad was sincere, innocent, but behind the responses lurked Ronnie Adrian J. Towns, a stranger who answered the ad and convinced them to drive over 3 hours to Telfair County, Georgia, to see the Mustang. When the Runyons arrived in January 2015, Towns ambushed them on a dirt road, shooting both in cold blood and stealing their identification and belongings. Their bodies were discovered later that night. The news shook their small community. Bud had spent decades delivering food, bicycles, and warmth through his charitable efforts. Despite the crime going cold for years, a magnet fisher recovered crucial evidence in a nearby creek: Bud's credit cards and Towns' .22 rifle, leading to a 2024 guilty plea. Towns received 2 life sentences without parole. Schedule and type should have led to a drive home. Instead, it led to a drive to their deaths. A devastating reminder of how trust in an online listing can become fatal. Case 5. Donna Zhu, the missing tutor. Donna Zhu was bright, ambitious, and just 19 years old when she answered a Craigslist ad for tutoring in 2007. She was last seen getting on the back of a motorcycle in Southern California. She never came home. The man behind the ad was John Stephen Burgess, a convicted sex offender using Craigslist to meet young women under the guise of needing academic help. Days after Donna disappeared, Burgess fled the state. When he was finally arrested, he confessed to giving her drugs, claimed she overdosed, then admitted to dumping her body in the ocean. No remains were ever recovered. Donna's parents live with the unending grief of not knowing. Her case remains a haunting example of how quickly an opportunity can become a tragedy when the wrong person is behind the screen. Case 6. James Sanders, the Diamond Trap. In 2010, James Sanders was just trying to sell a diamond ring on Craigslist, a gift for his wife he hoped would bring in some money. A couple came to the house, posing as interested buyers. James's wife, children, everyone was home. It seemed safe, until it wasn't. The so-called buyers pulled guns, tied the family up, and demanded valuables. James tried to protect his family. He was shot and killed in front of his children. The suspects were a criminal couple working with a third accomplice, a family of robbers. All were later caught, but the damage was done. A romantic gesture answered with bullets. Case 7. The Photographer's Lie. In 2013, in Las Vegas, 19-year-old Alyssa Funke had just started college. Bright, curious, and eager to explore her independence, She responded to a Craigslist ad seeking models for a photography project. The ad looked professional. The man behind it claimed to work for an entertainment company and promised quick cash and a chance at exposure. But it was a setup. Alyssa soon discovered the photo shoot was actually for an adult video site. The man who posted the ad manipulated her into participating. After the video went public, Alyssa became the target of online harassment and cruel bullying from people in her hometown. The emotional toll was devastating. Just 2 weeks later, Alyssa drove to a lake near her family's cabin. She took a selfie. Then, she took her own life. Her death wasn't from physical violence, but from psychological trauma and exploitation made possible through a single Craigslist ad. No one was ever held legally responsible. A promise of stardom that ended in silence. Case 8. Timothy Kern. A grave behind the mall. Remember the farm trap? Scott Davis was the one who got away. But Timothy Kern wasn't so lucky. Also lured by Richard Beasley and Brogan Rafferty, Kern answered the same job ad and met the same fate. Except this time, his body was found behind a shopping mall, buried in a shallow grave, bullet in the head. Kern had been laid off just days before. He was desperate. The killers knew it. They didn't see a man. They saw a mark. Case 9. The stolen iPhone scheme. In Jacksonville, Florida, Craigslist ads offered iPhones at unbeatable prices. People showed up with cash in hand, excited, hopeful. Instead, they were met with guns. A group of robbers posted fake ads to lure buyers, then ambushed them at arranged meeting spots. In one case, a man was shot in the leg and left bleeding on the curb. The scheme ran for weeks before the group was caught. Their victims, everyday people, teens, parents. One man was just trying to buy a phone for his daughter's birthday. The bait was digital. The trap was real. Case 10. The Black Coat Murder. In 2011, a man in Colorado listed his coat for sale on Craigslist. Harmless, right? 2 buyers arrived, a man and woman. They looked young, polite. He let them into his home. They shot him and took the coat. The victim was described as kind and trusting. His only mistake? Letting Craigslist strangers into his home. The killers? Teens. One, just 16 years old. They thought they'd get away with it. They didn't. But the randomness of it all, the senselessness, is what lingers. Not every ad leads to something evil. But when it does, it can be fatal. The next time you scroll through Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, remember, every ad has a poster. Every poster has a story, and sometimes that story is soaked in darkness. Craigslist is a mirror. It reflects who we are, the hopeful, the desperate, the greedy, and the monstrous. These weren't just crimes, they were traps. And the bait? Trust. Jobs, dates, sales, everyday interactions turned deadly through a screen. That's the real horror, how normal it all begins. Scott Davis thought he was rebuilding his life. Catherine Olson just wanted to babysit. Donna Zhao wanted to help someone learn. And someone wanted them dead. That's the unsettling truth. Monsters don't live under beds. They live in inboxes. They speak through pixels and promises. Thank you for joining us on this journey through digital dread. If you found this story chilling, consider subscribing to Crooked Veil, where we explore the horror hidden in plain sight. And remember, when the veil thins, what steps through may not always want to be seen.